Hi, this is Matt Stone here talking about sugar. I started traveling recently, went to London first, and now I'm in Spain, and I just can't believe that there's this paranoia going on here about sugar in drinks. Now, obviously, there's a lot of negative information out there about sugar, but it's not all conclusive. Not at all. Certainly not to the point where there should be taxes on sugar and basically, like, it's impossible, almost impossible, to find a full sugar beverage of any kind here. The only one I've been able to find in all of Spain and the UK was full Coca Cola Classic, which has caffeine, so I don't drink much of that. I can't tolerate too much. So that left me unable to drink Sprite. Even just regular Sprite is labeled as Sprite. You think you're getting a Sprite? No. It's got artificial sweeteners in it and very low sugar, something like 60 something calories a can, and it's loaded up with sucralose, aspartame, asulfame, potassium. You see that in several drinks here as well. I tried Fanta, same thing. Sports drinks, same thing. Even Pepsi, just regular Pepsi, labeled as Pepsi. Not Pepsi Max, not Diet Pepsi, but just Pepsi, still has artificial sweeteners in it. So it's crazy that that has swept the region, a region that already doesn't really have that big of an issue with obesity compared to the rest of the world. And this region it's everybody drinks, they smoke, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The fact that they would be more afraid of sugar to the point of being so paranoid that it would be replaced with artificial sweeteners is just crazy. I can't believe I'm seeing it here. I wanted to bring up this today, which is the Australian paradox. I don't know if it's really a paradox because I don't think the research out there on sugar consumption is all that conclusive at all in terms of its, it being having a causal relationship with obesity, which is what people are the most concerned about. I would assume, since obviously everybody knows there's no association between sugar consumption and diabetes, that it must be the obesity that people are worried about. But here in Australia, it's the opposite. There's been over the last, the period of time that they're talking here, which is, we'll look at it. It's a period of like 20 something years, I believe. A 20% decline in sugar intake with a 300% increase in overweight and obesity occurred at the same time. So as sugary, added sugars, especially in the form of sugary drinks, decreased, obesity skyrocketed, right? So a little hard to pin it all on sugar. I think it might be a little more complicated than it's all just caused by sugar. What do you think? Anybody? We'll skip down to the conclusion first here. The conclusion: the present analysis indicates the existence of an Australian paradox, i.e., an inverse relationship between secular trends and the prevalence of obesity prevalence, increasing by 300%, and the consumption of refined sugar over the same time frame, declining by 20%. The findings challenge the implicit assumption that taxes and other measures to reduce intake of soft drinks will be an effective strategy in global efforts to reduce obesity. So basically what's happened in Australia, they've reduced their sugar intake and their obesity has skyrocketed. And for some reason, that's spread to Europe. And it's taking over Europe, this idea that we can fight obesity by ruining all the drinks. Putting sweeteners in there that taste like horse piss is not the answer. And I was really disappointed to see that. So anyway, let's read a little bit more out of the study here. Clearly, overconsumption of energy relative to needs must be addressed to halt the obesity epidemic. However, a recent analysis of Australian children's dietary intakes from 95 to 2007 revealed a substantial decrease in sugar-sweetened beverage, halved as a percentage of energy, halved consumption over the past decade, but increased consumption in the proportion of energy from chocolate. This is key, I think. Chocolate, cakes, cookies, pizza, and chips. Okay? If you think a fat-free drink, a drink that has no fat in it at all, is more responsible for getting fat than chocolate, cakes, cookies, pizza, and chips, then you're delusional. I don't know what else to tell you. You know, and they talk about it here, right? They talk about it right here. The sugar and sugary beverages were not predominant extra foods in the diets of Australian children. Therefore, the question of whether there is much to be gained by focusing public health on the removal of sugar and sugar-sweetened beverages remains. The concern is that potentially more important determinants of obesity are being overlooked by the current emphasis on sugars and fats. Okay? It is possible that less emphasis has been given to disseminating the message of lowering total energy intake, while avoidance of particularly nutrients such as sugars has been the primary focus. In practice, many individuals overconsume fast foods along with a diet drink, right? Interestingly, research by the World Health Organization found that the Australian energy supply has increased almost exclusively as a result of an increased intake of fat. Fat, guys, fat. They're increasing they're eating more fatty foods and drinking less fat-free soda and getting fatter because of it, right? Strategies aimed at reduction of added sugars consumption alone will not automatically improve over dietary quality. Indeed, lower relative fat consumption was obvious in the high added sugar consumers. The sugar-fat seesaw. This basic idea is that the more sugar you eat, the less fat. The more fat you eat, the less sugar. You're going to eat one or the other, which would suggest that a reduction in added sugars might lead to increased fat consumption. If you're not getting sugar from drinks, which are completely fat-free, and tilt the balance of any meal that you consume towards being higher in carbohydrates and lower in fat, if you get rid of that, and you're going to end up satisfying your desire for sweet foods with cookies, cakes, pies, ice cream, etc., which are much more energy dense, much more fatty, much more fattening than the drinks alone. Suggested reduction in added sugars might lead to increased fat consumption. Logic tells us that an inappropriately high intake of energy in any energy source will result in weight gain. Anyway, that's the basics here. If you think that, it's a case closed, that sugar, especially sugary drinks, are the devil, and that is the conclusive root, single sole cause of obesity, you're not looking at all the information that exists out there. I know that is the narrative, and there are some studies and some information out there that corroborates that narrative and supports that narrative, but there is plenty that does the opposite, and it's inconclusive at best. And just from my own personal experience and common sense tells you that really fatty junk foods and things like that, and cakes, pies, pastries, pizza, burgers, things like that, eating large amounts of those foods, eating even more of those to make up for the calories you're not getting from your sugary drinks, is not necessarily a better thing, and it's not necessarily going to lead to anybody being leaner, healthier, etc., etc., etc. So anyway, don't throw out the, don't take the sugary drinks out to the woodshed quite yet. There's still a lot more to the story, and it may even be beneficial to be consuming lean, sugary calories from fruit juice, sweetened beverages, and things like that, and getting your energy from a fat-free source rather than loading up on more and more fatty foods. You will literally displace the fat in your diet by consuming more lean, sugary things. So it might actually be the opposite. And experiment freely, don't fear the sugar, and see what you find for yourself.